We'll start with the NFL draft and what the Saints did yesterday. And like I said, they didn't get overly aggressive and trade up and mortgage picks. They just stayed where they were. They took a pick at a position of need. That's good. Good work. Didn't need you trading up 8 spots, trading 4 picks away. You got a lot of holes. You got to start filling them. You can do that one by one, and they did last night with Bryan Bresee, a 6'5", 300-pound defensive lineman from Clemson, going to play on the interior for the Saints. This is a guy with a ton of talent, a big-time backstory as well. He was the #1 player in the country coming out of high school in 2020, signed with Clemson, and over his time in 3 years at Clemson has dealt with a lot, from a kidney infection to some injuries. He had an ACL injury, he had a shoulder injury, and then lost his younger sister, Ella, at age 15 due to brain cancer. The whole family was in Ella Strong sweatshirts last night. But he's a really, really good player. And the Saints had to have him. They had to have someone at that position. I was looking up the Saints' run defense today, and we remember that it was bad. It was bad. After a run of 5 or 6 years with great run defense and elite-level defense, the Saints took a step back this past year. You all remember Tyler Algier running for 139 yards for Atlanta. You remember that. I think what's even worse and a bigger indictment on the Saints' run defense is that Eno Benjamin ran for 92 yards on 12 carries. That's almost 8 yards a carry, and then got cut twice the next month by 2 different teams. He ended up playing for the Saints later. This guy couldn't stay on a roster, and he ran for almost 100 yards on the Saints' run defense last year. It would be fun if they took a pass catcher in the first round. It would be fun if they took a quarterback in the first round. It'd be a lot to talk about, and you'd see him scoring touchdowns. You can't stop the run. You're toast. I know the NFL wants to spread it out. They want to throw it. It's a modern game. You still got to stop people from running the football. And the Saints did that when they were a really good team. They didn't last year, and for that reason, they were a bad team. There were a number of other reasons, quarterback play being one of them. But you can't stop the run. You're toast. And Bryan Bresee, while has not been a tremendous pass rusher at Clemson, has been very strong against the run and shown flashes of rushing the passer. I think you drafted a guy with a lot of talent, with a high-character individual. I listened to some of the interviews that Mickey Loomis did, some of the interviews that Dennis Allen did, and they went to Clemson and spent a lot of time with a number of players on Clemson's roster, but Bryan Bresee was one of them. And they just glowed about the interaction they had with him, the film study they did with him, and I think you've done a really good job here. It's the second year in a row where everybody kind of looked at this thing and went, okay, this is where the Saints need to go, and they actually did it. Last year, you thought, man, they got to figure out tackle. Terron Armstead's moved on. You got Ramczyk on one end, but you're a little light at tackle, and they went and got Trevor Penning, and you thought, okay, this wide receiver room is not adequate. And they went and got Chris Olave, who had a great year. Penning, of course, missed a bunch of time with injury, but Olave had a really, really good rookie year. And you would imagine that that's a guy that's going to be a cornerstone of the next really good Saints team. And this year, everybody looked at it and said, they got to do something up front. They addressed it a little bit in free agency, adding the 2 guys they did. But they go get Bresee, who's going to plug in, and he's going to play a lot for the Saints in year 1, I think, as an interior defensive lineman. The question becomes, what are the Saints going to do moving forward? I'm excited to get Cat Terrell's thoughts on that here in about 10 minutes. But you got 40 and 71 today. I'd be pretty surprised if the Saints don't move up at some point today. That's just, it's in their DNA. I love the number that Luke Johnson gave us yesterday on this show where he said the last 20 times the Saints have traded draft picks, they have moved up. 20 for 20. Not 17, not 19, 20 out of 20 the Saints moved up. I can't imagine they're going to sit on their hands today. It's like somebody glued Mickey Loomis's hands to the couch. Like, sit down. We're taking the pick. Just cool your jets. I can't imagine that's going to hold for another 24 hours. I would think the Saints will move up. The question is, do they move up early today? They've got the 8th pick in today's portion of the draft. It's 40th overall. Do the Saints want to trade up to go get Michael Mayer? If that's a guy they've identified at a spot where, look, Juwan Johnson is what he is. He's undersized, not going to bring you a ton in terms of blocking. He's a converted wide receiver playing tight end. And you took a middle-round pick on Adam Troutman. You really like the measurables. Small school, how's it going to translate? And it's just kind of been a nothing burger to this point. Does Michael Mayer fit into your plans? I don't know that you're going to be able to get him at 40. Can you get him at 35? What does it take to move up 5 picks? Yesterday, to move up 1 pick, the Eagles ditched a 4th rounder. At this point, you're not that high in the draft. Can you give up a sixth to move up 3 or 4 spots? That sounds very Saints-ish to me. And is Michael Mayer the guy that you target there? I think another option right here at the top of the second round is Osiris Torrance. Look at the contract structures you've got up the middle. Andrews Pete's not going to be on this team at this point next year. Do you want to make a move at a guard spot? Osiris Torrance is probably the best one sitting there. He's a Louisiana native, went to Louisiana Lafayette, played at Florida, and it translated. He went from the Sun Belt to the SEC. He was as good a guard as there was in the league. Is that a guy that you can target at 40? I did the pronunciation on this, so bear with me. I'm going to get through it. Adetomiwa Adebawore. Adetomiwa Adebawore. That's right. I've spelled it out phonetically. I heard him say it and then wrote it down on my notes. Adetomiwa Adebawore from Northwestern, the defensive end. I wouldn't be mad at the Saints at all if they went back to defensive line. At all. You need depth there. You need rotation. You had a couple guys go out the door in your division. You brought a couple in. Now you just drafted one. Go get another one. And that's another big run-stopping defensive end. I mean, like I said yesterday, Cam Jordan has had 21 sacks in the last 2 seasons. That's great production. Do you think he's going to have 21 more over the next 2 seasons? I don't. Maybe he'll defy age, and maybe he'll do it. He's in great shape, and he's been incredibly durable. As durable as any player in the sport. But eventually, Father Time wins. I wouldn't be mad at all if they went defensive line. Maybe you don't want to move up to get Mayer, but instead you take Sam Laporta, the tight end from Iowa. I know Hester loves him. I would like that. I think tight end is something you got to address. Or do you go running back? There are plenty of running backs on the board right now. I kind of like the running back options that'll probably be there at 71. I think Devon Achane makes a lot of sense for the Saints. You've brought in Jamal Williams to carry the ball as your bell cow back. Achane's a playmaker. We saw it, unfortunately. I think that makes a ton of sense at 71. Tank Bigsby will be there at 71. He's carried the ball a ton at Auburn, but he's a big physical back that could be your lead back in the future. Tyjae Spears, a guy we talked about a lot, hometown kid from Tulane. Is that a name you want to go after? It feels like at some point they're going to address running back. I'm fine with it in the middle rounds. I'm fine with it in the 4th or 5th round. The Saints have been pretty good finding running backs later on. That you can't get to a point where Eno Benjamin's your guy on his 3rd team of the season. Can't believe that guy ran for 8 yards a carry on the Saints and then got cut twice in a month. Fix that, Bryan Bresee. But I think what the Saints do is fascinating. And again, this goes back to what I said on Tuesday of this week. The Saints have issues. But as you start to address them in the draft and a little bit in the free agency that you did, you start looking around the division and going, okay, this is doable. And then you start looking around the conference and you say, okay, this is doable. Who are the best 2 quarterbacks in the NFC? Jalen Hurts and Matt Stafford? Dak Prescott? You start to look around and go, okay. So I think yesterday was a step in the right direction, and I think today is huge for the Saints. Huge. Because of the money you spent at quarterback, you weren't able to address some of the other things you may have done in free agency, because Derek Carr signed a big deal football-wise, not quarterback-wise, but football-wise, salary cap-wise. You've got to hit on these early draft picks. It's a lot to ask to hit on 6th and 7th rounders. That's asking a lot. It happens, but it doesn't happen very often. You've got to hit 1st, 2nd, 3rd round.